Yeah, how is it going with Gen Zs in this field?
I find them to be very inquisitive, which leads them to open up new ways of doing things. I see them as a very, very positive force, and I think, like with anyone, with the correct mentoring, I think they're going to change the landscape of Zambia. I find that a lot of our young engineers, sometimes they want to jump into I can be a consultant. When you watch someone who's done something over and over and over, they make it look easy. One day you're talking about project delivery in an initiation meeting, and then the next thing it's coming up and next it's done within a space of 18 months. And you're thinking to yourself, I mean, how hard could it be? Have you been to Cargo 88? First of its kind, that's a hotel built out of container frames. The Kazungula Bridge, for example, we had Zambian engineers playing a very vital role in achieving what we see there now. I always feel a sense of pride to just know that a big part of it was Zambian engineers.
Hello and welcome to Money and People podcast, the show which connects the dots between financial success and the power of human capital. In this episode, we talk all things consultancy in Zambia, and our guest on the show is none other than Mr. Gomezyani Mwaba. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Henry. Glad to be here.
Okay, so to get into the thick of it, who is Gomezyani Mwaba?
Well, Henry, I think it's always hard to sort of talk about yourself, but first things first, I think most important role, Gomezyani is a father and a husband. But before assuming those important roles, Gomezyani also has early years. Born in Zambia, I'm the fourth born. Have brothers, sisters, and yeah, just someone who's come up as a Zambian with the Zambian culture and gone through the ranks of education, and yeah, here we are as engineers today.
Okay, do you want to tell us a bit about your educational background?
Okay, yeah. So I started my early years at Charleston Nursery School. That's why I did a little bit of nursery school, and then I went to Olympia Primary School. Back then, my father worked for Zesco, so he would be moved quite a bit. So I started at Olympia Primary School, then went to River Rain in Kitwe, then came back to Lusaka, continued at Olympia Primary School. I wrote my grade 7 from there, and then went on to Kablonga Boys. Can I even remember? Yeah, I can't really remember, but I just remember being very, very excited about the grades, and yeah, my parents also just sharing in the joy.
Because he's being modest, he was one of the top students in Zambia at grade 7, and I'll fast forward to grade 9 as well. I think he was number 1 in grade 9. Could have been number 1 at grade 12 as well, the whole country. So for people who are being modest, we'll just speak on their behalf.
No, it was actually quite competitive, I remember. So yeah, did my a little bit of secondary at Kablonga Boys. And then back then, the mines used to kind of jump in and offer scholarships for like a 5-year period. So I got a mining scholarship under the then ZCCM, and I then did my grade 8 to 12 at Mpelembe Secondary School. Then came back to Lusaka, did my A levels, and I got to University of Cape Town, where I did my undergrad and postgrad. And yeah, I think that's about it on my educational background.
Okay, and what drove you specifically to engineering? Was this always the dream from childhood, or was this something that you discovered you wanted to do later on?
Look, I think I feel like I was always torn between being in the medical space and being, I don't think it was quite clear whether it was going to be engineering. But then as I went along, I found that I had a huge liking for things, maths, science, physics. And yeah, I think it kind of only started getting clear after, as I did my A levels, that I wanted to do engineering. And then, yeah, I think also inspiration from parents. Like my dad was an electrical engineer, so it kind of came as an easy choice which field of engineering to do. Yeah.
All right, great. And coming into consultancy itself, are you able to give a brief overview of the current landscape? And how would you describe its current state and growth potential?
Yeah. So consultancy in Zambia, Henry, has been around for a very long time. When you look at some of the bodies that actually consultants in the engineering space subscribe to, we're talking as early as 1966, somewhere there. When it comes to the growth that we've had in the arena, I don't think it's really received a lot of growth. There was a time, I think, when we started getting a number of engineering consultants. But you also have to look back in time. You know, when we got independence in 1964, there were certain industries which were driving, like the mines, and they would literally take up most of the graduates that came from our institutions of learning. So most ended up kind of taking up a role in those institutions, but then there were a few that kind of went into consulting. And then, and I think it's pretty much been the norm, where you graduate and you're in an institution. So that gap hasn't really been explored by a lot of people. Fast forward to present day, look, we're beginning to see an interest from young people in the consultancy space. And talking about its potential, I really see great potential, I think, for both Zambia, the region, and Africa, locally here in Zambia. Yeah.
And how easy is it to enter the field? Are there barriers? Are they already set? How hard is it to go in?
So like anything, remember, when you're a consultant, you're expected to be an expert at something. You're going to give a lot of guidance on how things should be done. So by the time you're getting into that space, you must be of a certain caliber, both from uh, um, knowledge, in-depth knowledge of the principles that you're dealing with, but also how to understand what surrounds your specific expertise, and that comes with experience and mentoring and all those things. So I wouldn't necessarily describe them as barriers, but I think you have to go through the paces. Um, yeah, so getting into it, you really need dedication. If you're going to come into this space and be able to deliver, you really need to be dedicated and not see things as barriers, but rather a process that you need to go through. Yeah.
And how are the hours like?
The hours are long. The hours are long. And you know, it's a space where the buck stops with you. So you do what you have to do to make sure you're getting the correct information out. If it's something that you've seen before, for example, maybe it will come a bit easier. But often you're dealing with very unique situations which require long hours. And part of it is also just making sure you've gotten the client brief right. And for you to get it right, it might require you to actually look at fields that you never thought you would one day be in. Just speaking from experience, today I could be dealing with doctors, tomorrow I'm dealing with, farmers, and I need to understand the background. So yeah, the hours sometimes can be long.
Okay, so you also need a level of agility from what I'm getting.
Yeah, you need a very high level of agility. You need a lot of and I think it's something that you learn along the way, but you also need to be very patient, because the people that are coming to you may not know better about what needs to be done in order to achieve something. They just want to see that something is done, but you think about it in terms of step A, B, C. You're thinking about it in steps, and you just, yeah. So you need to be able to pivot between clients and just deliver to their satisfaction.
Okay. And in terms of demand, what type of services from an engineering perspective are in demand in Zambia? What are customers looking for the most?
Yeah, look, I think just looking at the landscape in Zambia, a lot of these things work in cohesion. Let me put it that way. So, uh, for example, let's look back at 2011. I think when we had a drive towards opening up Zambia. I think the ones that played or that were more in the forefront in the consulting space were probably engineers, civil structural, that specialized in roads. So it felt like there was a big demand for that, for the civil space. And then now you've opened up the roads, so you can set up a number of nodes and centers which require brick and mortar infrastructure. So you begin to get, like the electrical people, the mechanical people, because you have to make the buildings work. As we speak at the moment, I would say it's kind of um, a fair and flat space where we've got a demand for almost every aspect of engineering as we build this infrastructure.
Okay. And in terms of going green as a country, how is the growing emphasis on renewable energy and sustainable development creating new avenues?
Yeah, so I think it's created a lot of avenues. One is data acquisition, because look, the whole principle behind renewables is you really, the reason why we've gotten there in the first place is because of an anticipated shortage in energy. So what we're trying to do is to make the most with the little that we have, bearing in mind that scaling up on some of the renewables is also a costly venture. So what has happened is we are now talking about what's the minimum amount of energy that I need to use, which has then led to us beginning to get data on usage. So that's an avenue on its own. There are people now who are becoming specialized in metering and data acquisition on usage patterns and the likes. So that's one aspect. But then we also talk about the renewables themselves. So there are people who are now becoming specialized in actual design for renewables, and measuring environmental aspects of these renewables. We're talking solar, we're talking water. We need to understand the patterns. Where do we have these resources and whatnot? So that's also, another avenue that has been opened up. The designers, the people who put together these systems, that's an avenue. And recently, we are now talking about, a certain level of reporting in most organizations, which is environmental social governance. Yeah, from an engineering perspective, we find ourselves dealing mostly with the environmental issues. So we need to know who's being responsible with the use of energy. And we are now setting certain parameters for clients to stick to and report themselves as being responsible as part of the ESG reporting. So there's certain certifications now that we have. We've got things like EDGE, LEED certifications. So that's an avenue. We have people that we're calling green building experts. So those are some of the things that are coming with the whole drive towards renewable energies.
And in terms of sufficiency of skilling, do we have that adequacy in Zambia from what you've observed to actually have Zambians fit into all of these different sectors?
So I think we've got a long way to go in order to meet in order to meet that level that is required. But it's also a bit of a chicken and egg situation. What happens first? People like to jump into a space where there's a bit of a demand for that. But you see, the demand can only come when, for example, clients that are building are sensitized on the need for these things. So we are at a point where those coming in are jumping into the areas where there's this perceived demand. But truth be told, sometimes you have to get the cart before the horse. So you kind of have your projections, where are we going with this, and then you begin to upskill in those areas, and then you hit a critical mass when people see, okay, so we do have these things that, yeah, that we can look locally. I myself am an edge expert, so I'm a green building consultant, and at some point there was only 2 of us in the entire country. Now you look at all the infrastructure going on, and then we looked around and were thinking, is there no demand for this? And I remember making a presentation to Property Owners Association, and it was beginning to come out that, you know, some people actually wanted to do these things because they've heard that if you go this way, there is lower utility. No one wants to pay a high bill. Yeah. So you know, and now it's kind of beginning to grow. So and because of that, we're also seeing a number of people also taking interest in actually becoming experts in that arena. So we're still a long way. We still got a long way to get there, but we are getting there, and I think that's what's important at the end of the day. We need to be moving in the right direction.
That's encouraging to hear. And are there any untapped markets or sectors in Zambia where you guys as engineering consultants can play a significant role?
I've always felt the mining sector. I've always felt we haven't done enough there. You know, just looking at my colleagues in the consulting space and those that we interact often with, very rarely will I come across a colleague that's telling me their niche is in the mines. And yet this is a sector that makes us the most money as a country, all the money as a country, yeah. So I think that's one area that we haven't tapped into. And I think as Zambian engineers as well, we just need to be wary of what's what's happening on the global or international landscape. In that we're now beginning to think as a unit, as a collection of countries, rather than thinking about it as Zambia. That's why you're hearing things like, oh, there'll be the Zambia-Tanzania interconnector or Zambia-Congo interconnector. So those are areas that have already started developing, and we need to tap into those areas because we haven't really played a significant part there. Yeah.
Right, interesting. And what are some of the biggest challenges that you guys face?
Look, as consultants, you find yourself being categorized as private sector. So we operate as independent bodies, and therefore, at the end of it, you're thinking as your operations as a business. I think the biggest hurdles that we face are mostly business running hurdles. You know, how do we handle our taxes? Are we getting enough help from the from the taxman? How many areas do we need to subscribe to? You know, so those are some of the challenges. I think it's more on the running of the business side. I think also just having strong regulations, enforceable regulations. We do have quite a bit that is on paper, but without enforcement, it then begins to present a challenge. So yeah, those are some of the areas I think that we need to work on. I think another, like I spoke before, like I said before, we're hardly ever working in isolation. I'm an electrical engineer, but I'm working with people in the food industry. I'm working with doctors. I'm working with architects. I'm working with civil structure engineers. So there is need to have things that we can, where we can speak as one. We can have one way of doing things as opposed to this one doing that, the other one doing that. And usually that comes about because of a lack of enforceable regulations or the lack of enforcement on those regulations. So speaking from, as a consultant, I think that those are some of the challenges that that are faced.
Okay. Do you ever experience, what will I say, blueprint theft? So it's, do I need, yeah, so there is a tender, you guys bid, you send through your proposals, you have your blueprints, and somebody rejects it. Only a few days later to find that's what's actually being utilized.
Yeah, a couple of it does happen. Specifically to my organization and me, haven't really experienced it, but I know we've had a couple of incidences where, and mind you, when we're doing these bids, we're also doing it as a team. So you feed into one big proposal and you submit that proposal. So not directly your components, but you're a part of something that was complex as you submitted, and it's rejected maybe on price or whatever it is. But next thing something is coming up, and you're thinking, that pretty much looks like what what we're thinking about. It's not something that you can really prove. It's also difficult to prove, but you do get an inkling. Yeah, you can sort of tell that this looks like something that we did propose, and yeah.
And there's nothing in hand to sort of protect that.
So look, I think the processes, the whole procurement process should really protect against that. If there's any intellectual property in what you're proposing, then I guess you also have to be upfront with really declaring. But in most cases, what's requested at that level is kind of, okay, give us an idea of what it is that you're going to come and do for us. The whole procurement system is meant to protect, because there's let's say a technical evaluation which should have certain rules that particular things that you're looking for, and then you look at your financial. So it's meant to be very transparent, such that whoever gets through at the end of the day, it's because of their idea and their pricing. So we do trust that that's how things should operate. But every now and then you will get scenarios where maybe, for one reason or the other, those guidelines were not adhered to, either out of lack of knowledge of the procurement process. And yeah, you do land in such places where you feel you're not protected, but ultimately we should be protected by the procurement processes.
Okay. And from a regulator and bureaucratic perspective, what hurdles do you guys often encounter? And do you have any recommendations to sort of mitigate or address them?
Yeah, I find that there are some things which spring up on you. Maybe let me talk about from the tax side. Here you are, you're running your business, you're an engineer, you should be focusing on the technical things and delivery. And then, for one reason or the other, your tax, the ZRA will not renew your compliance, and you then ask the question, and you're told, oh no, because something has changed. You're not in this bracket, so maybe you should be registered for this tax and not that tax. So then you begin to fight something that is not mainstream, because there was this issue that happened that you are not really aware.
So it takes you away from the core of what you're supposed to be doing.
Yes, it takes you away from the core of what you're supposed to be doing to kind of try and deal with this. So if you ask me what do we need to do to mitigate this bureaucracy and delays in getting things done, it could boil down to simple things like just adequate sensitization. This is the plan. a lot of stakeholder engagement. Like I said, consultants hardly ever work in isolation, and you need to be kept in the know of what things are changing or likely to change. Yeah, so I would say, but generally, I would also add, I think engineering consulting has been relatively straightforward in terms of what needs to be done. It's quite a mature industry, like I said. It's been around since the 1960s, and over the years, we've kind of understood how things should be done, what things need to be put in place. But as we evolve as a nation, as we evolve as an industry, you would expect that things would change, and the changes in how we are doing things just needs to be communicated, and we keep everyone abreast. And yeah, those are some of the challenges I think that we were facing.
Okay. And from a tech perspective, how is AI transforming the way you do engineering right now? How is AI affecting your operations?
Yeah, look, AI is something that everyone will have to keep an eye on. There are certain aspects of consulting that have been traditional and have been, for lack of a better term, manual. A simple example is how you are issuing information to a site. Uh, you know, arranging it and be able to retrieve and just make sure you're on the right revisions on a drawing and all those things. Typically, it would be someone actually looking at those aspects and just making sure, have we issued the right drawing? Is it the latest revision? And where we're seeing things is, AI is beginning to take over some of these mundane tasks and making us more efficient. There is a fear that AI is going to take our jobs and our safe or whatnot. But the reality is that these are things that we can leverage on to become very competitive. So AI, I think, is beginning to transform how we do things as engineers. It's beginning to level a lot of things, in that even what we considered small organizations are now getting this ability to throw in a very big punch, because a lot of these processes that you'd have needed 3, 4 people or a whole department can actually be automated. Um, so yeah, I think it's a move in the right. It's causing a bit of a disruption in the thinking, but I think we should be happy about that, because that's the only way we move forward, and
Pushing us forward faster.
yeah, pushing us forward faster. Exactly. So yeah, I see it as a great thing, and not really in the negative sense. It's very, very positive for the industry.
Okay. And in the spirit of celebrating Zambians, are there any innovative projects or solutions that Zambian engineering consultancies are leading, either locally or regionally? Are there any individuals or organizations, Zambian born and bred especially, that you would celebrate and say, look, they're doing something great? In the spirit of game, recognized game?
Yeah, yeah. I like to talk to most of the senior engineers who've seen a lot of the engineering landscape, if you want to call it that, in Zambia. And yeah, I could point out probably a couple of projects. The Kazungula Bridge, for example. We had Zambian engineers playing a very vital role in achieving what we see there now.
Yeah, that's a marvel. I mean, I've been there once or twice.
Yeah, I mean, you see the beauty when you drive over, and
You just stay and just watching, like, this is ours,
yeah, if you, I don't know, did you ever get onto the pontoon that
Pontoon.
got you across the river?
No, I was too scared. No, no pontoon. I watched from a distance and that was it.
Yeah, so I did it twice. And the last time I did it, we were relocating from, because I spent some time in South Africa. I lived there with family. And when we're coming back in 2015, that was the only way to get our car across. So it was our car, and then we got on the pontoon.
So you're okay with it, and it's always moving, like it's on the sides, like tilted, and like
You just engross yourself in conversations with whoever is around to distract yourself from whatever could happen. So I moving from that to what we have now, you know, it's real engineering and working, and I always feel a sense of pride to just know that a big part of it was Zambian engineers. We have had some of our senior engineers also who've pioneered projects in areas like Rwanda. Um, you know, very innovative engineers. Locally, to toot my own horn, I don't, have you been to Cargo 88? Yeah, the first of its kind. That's a hotel built out of container frames. You know, and just the innovation that's very different, you know, and so also
wait, you were
local
involved in
team.
that?
Yeah, so
Do they give
we
you
were.
free food?
I can neither confirm nor deny this. Uh, yeah, well, but it's whenever you walk into the space, you just get this sense of originality, and it was just great to work with a Zambian team with an innovative approach. So I believe we do have that level of innovation and yeah, and skill.
I think it's very important to celebrate our people, because for the most part, whenever we're talking engineering, um, you know, you seldom hear us celebrating our own. But deep down, we know a lot of our engineers that have done marvelous things, but who's celebrating them? Like, you know, cargo, I didn't know. I just thought, you know, it was foreign contractor. They did all of that because, you know, once you're driving there, just the way it is, the concept and everything else, you always stop and say, okay, whoever did this was a work of genius.
Yeah.
So now we're sitting with the work of genius,
Yeah,
with the genius behind the work. We are
yeah.
humbled.
No, it's we like I said, the engineering space has got a lot of brilliant people. When you get to speak to them, you attend conferences and just hear the ideas. We've got a lot of them, and I guess also the nature of the space is you hardly ever hear engineers, you know, kind of beating their own chest about things. So um, there are some unsung heroes, if you could put it that way. But yeah, I think every once in a while when you look around, I think, you know, you celebrate the Zambian engineers. It's really a marvel to just have such brilliant people.
Yeah, I think it would be important to have, unless I've missed it, some form of documentary just showing this was done by Zambians and this was done by, you know, so that we get, and for engineering work, it's something that you can look, feel, look, touch, and feel. So to give picture to the work that they've done could be something that's very important.
Yeah, Henry. I mean, in most areas, that's something that we don't do very well. We don't document a lot of the things that we do, a lot of the things that we achieve. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. It would be good to just document some of these things, and you know, celebrate our people. Not just engineering. It could be other fields as well. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Then people start asking what was the criteria for giving the award. It always comes up, you know, awards. What was the criteria?
Yeah, so look, as long as you set the criteria from the beginning, I feel, yeah, it's clear. Then we go with that. We are beginning to see awards coming up. So like I think last year was um, we had the inception of what are called the Beza Awards, the Built Environment, yeah, awards, and we had a few engineers. Although it's an all-encompassing award, which is given to engineers, architects, quantity surveyors, so anyone involved in the built environment. And there's some level of recognition for those that are achieving out there and doing great things. So you get building of the year, you get, you know, this and that. which is great. I think we're off to a good start with that.
I think the key thing is to start. And we get better as we go. I mean, life is always about continuous improvement.
Yep.
So we can, from 0, let's go to 1 and 3 and 7 and so on.
Yeah.
But I think it's encouraging to hear that at least there's that recognition now going on. So
Yeah.
it would be great to celebrate a whole lot more people.
Yeah, I mean, it also just gives a bit of inspiration to those that could be wanting to get in there into the industry.
Yeah. And what is your vision for the future of engineering consultancy in Zambia?
Uh, Big vision, scary.
Yeah.
So big it's scary. I think Zambia is getting positioned to really be a force to reckon with in the region.
Yep.
I think Zambia is getting recognized uh, in terms of delivery, um, working with outside partners, and just how they'll tell you of different experiences in different regions, and just how it's feeling a bit different about Zambians and how we're delivering. So my vision is that we need to get to a point where we understand exactly what we're there for, and we're confident in our abilities. And when we deliver, there's a certain level of quality that we're aspiring to, and we use that as our yardstick, where we're not granted. I mean, a lot of engineering consultancies are businesses at the end of the day, but the focus shouldn't be where you're worried about the money side of things, because you should get to a point where those are automatic, because you're able to deliver this quality. It's like you going to buy a Porsche or a fancy car. The cost is not the issue. By the time you're going to look for that quality, the cost is not the issue. There's a certain quality that you're looking for. So for me, my vision is we get to this point where our quality speaks, such that we don't have to worry about people will not say how much are we paying Gomezyani for this. That happens automatically, and we are there just delivering to the highest grade, and we maintain that standard. So that's my vision.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great to get to a place where we don't have to explain ourselves, just like it's can see for yourself. It's the customer who's actually running to it.
Yes, it's a customer who's actually running to it. Um, I mean, just looking at that vision, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of work, and it's one that you look at as me being an engineer now. I'm looking at those that have gone in the engineering sector before us. But I also need to keep a very, very clear eye on those that are coming after us, and just marrying the two through the correct mentorship and push for the engineers coming through. Yeah, so it's going to take a lot of work. It's a very big vision. Uh, you could describe it as scary, but you know what they say: if it doesn't scare you, then it's pointless. So uh, yeah, and I think we're going to get there. I think we're going to get there.
And from a collaborative perspective, how have you seen collaboration between government, private sector, and consultants? How would you give it a rating out of 10? And how do you see it as being important to driving growth and development?
So I'll give you one thing that's currently happening in our country. I'm sure you've been hearing about PPPs.
Yes.
That is one classic example of how those three arms could come together and foster development. But you also agree with me that in as much as the concept of PPP has been around for a very long time, I think it's only in the recent times that we've really begin to wake up to that to that way of doing things. But then again, for there to be great collaboration that just ensures quality, you can't have, let's say, two wings working without the other. And I see the engineering bit being, that bit that really needs to get in there and play a huge part. So we could be talking about mega projects, private sector coming into funding, government just ensuring that on the policy side we're well covered and we're moving in direction of government's vision. But as we're doing those things, how do we ensure that we've got quality installations? So, and that boils down to, the smooth development of a country. If you are going to build roads and you don't have uh, engineers going in there and just ensuring there's quality. Remember, when we talk about these PPPs, we're also talking about concession agreements. So it will be a period of 10, 20 years, 25 years. So we need to make sure that the infrastructure that's going in as part of this deal can actually stand the test of time throughout that period. You don't want to build a road where it's been concessioned for 25 years and then in the 5th year it's crumbling and you begin to claw back for maintenance purposes and all those things. So I think that's a classic example of how collaborations between private sector, government, and engineering consultants will really, really, really yield positive development for the country.
And are Zambians able to work together? There's always this concept that there's always this myth that goes around that we like to work as individuals, we don't like doing teamwork. What's your team like, and how is that going?
So I've heard that. I've heard that many times, and well, the context in which I understand it is, let's say, there's two electrical consulting companies, company A, company B, and the two can never just work together on a big project, to deliver. Because what do they call it? Pull him down, or it's me, not them, and. But I must say, so we've as a consulting company, we've been around since 2012, and I think our very early days we worked through collaborations. So I do know for a fact that we are able to collaborate and deliver. But there's still, like with many things that we have going on in Zambia, I think we still need to heighten that level of collaboration. We can collaborate, we can deliver on big projects, but we need to just heighten that level.
Is it a trust issue?
Trust issue, I wouldn't really say a trust issue, but maybe an issue of wanting to be more recognized than the next person. And I think even in that there's a little bit of responsibility on the collaborators. There's things that Henry will be able to do better than Gomezyani. Henry has got a certain capacity, I've got a certain capacity, and the best collaborations are where there's open discussion from the time that you're collaborating. I mean, there were times when we collaborated with other engineers, and all we had was minds that could get this, put it in a computer, but the interpretations we left to those who had more sophisticated software. It was a capacity issue, and you just have to understand. And then there are those collaborations where you come in as equal partners. Look, we'll split this like that. We'll do this part of the work, and so sometimes I find that it's an issue of wanting to be more recognized by the next individual or next company. Yeah, but as long as we understand how we're coming into this venture, then we really should be good.
Yeah, besides, the whole is bigger than the sum of parts, isn't it?
Exactly, and you'll find that in a lot of instances, the cake is big enough for.
There's enough for
Yeah,
everyone. That's what I
there's
always,
enough
there's
for
enough
everyone.
for every, there's no need to fight.
Yeah. There's enough for everyone, and again, this is where maybe the vision comes back, because when you begin to think regionally, when you begin to think internationally, um, I think your drive becomes a little bit different, and issues like being recognized more than that. I mean, your work will speak for itself. Yeah, so I do commend a lot of engineers out there, because I know there's been collaborations here and there, but like I said, we need to heighten that level, because we're not actually achieving our potential, which I believe we could through collaborations.
Yeah, totally agree. And lastly, what advice would you give to two sets of people? Somebody who's just finished, university, one has done engineering. What advice would you give them on an engineering career? What sort of path should they take? And also somebody who's then working for somebody and they want to go into consultancy, what advice would you have for them?
Yeah. So I'll start with the person just completing engineering. Um, First piece of advice is trust the process. There's something that we usually don't. I mean, I heard it when I was starting off my career, and I was like, no, no, you're kidding. And I was told, listen, by the time you're coming out of university, you probably only know 5% of what's out there to know. And I thought, no, not after all those sleepless nights, you know. So you have to trust the process. Look for the correct mentors. I had an opportunity to be very close to someone that was very passionate about their consultancy firm where I worked my first job. He taught me to always deliver with passion, and he was a great mentor. So I know. So
So you don't want to shout out?
well, this was so his name is Rob McNamara. I worked for a company in Cape Town, and he was just a very, very passionate person about everything he did. He was very meticulous about what you needed to get into your designs, how you needed to think about it. And he also had a team of directors under him that always just, gave the correct level of mentorship. And I remember being told, okay, so now before you can become a professional engineer recognized by EXA in South Africa, then you need to have done 4 years, and then you get subjected to some kind of interview process and write up, and then you get admitted. But even after that, the mentors will tell you to say, look, you've got this, but you still need to understand a few more things, and you need to have that belief. I find that a lot of our young engineers, sometimes they want to jump in too quick into I can be a consultant. Yeah. When you watch someone who's done something over and over and over, they make it look easy. And one day you're talking about project delivery in an initiation meeting, and then the next thing it's coming up, and next it's done within a space of 18 months. And you're thinking to yourself, I mean, how hard could it be? Yeah. But there's a lot that goes into it, from stakeholder management to keeping everyone working as a cohesive team, to actually getting this task that is placed before you, separate it out into little tasks, and then bring it back together. All those come through years and years of experience. You also do get very difficult clients. You get some that are easier than others, and you have to be able to sail those waters. Now, that's not something that is taught in school, but as you go through the years, you begin to get a good understanding. So what I would say to them is, trust the process. Deliberately look for mentors, someone who can mentor you, someone who you can speak openly about some areas that you feel you're not so strong and you need to grow. And yeah, you go that route, and you make a great consultant. For someone who's currently working and they're thinking, I need to go at it by myself. Look, you also have to go through. You have to measure where you are. You have to have very, very truthful discussions with yourself. Am I Have I reached a level of competency? have I put myself to the test, in this arena that I want to jump into? But also, sometimes you find that you wait a little bit too long, and then the years are going by, and you have to start. You have to give it a start, but it has to be measured, because, like I said in the beginning, the buck stops with you in most times. So if you don't have the level of competency to be able to deliver and something goes wrong, then you might as well be killing your career before it even takes off. So I would say the honest conversations with yourself, knowing where your weaknesses are, understanding what arena you need to jump into, and sometimes it takes a little bit of, inverted commas, vulnerability, in that you admit to yourself that I think I'll need assistance in just developing this skill, and having the skill is one thing. The application of that skill is another. So you need to understand where what fits. So I would encourage them to start, but start in a very, very uh, measured way, where you can actually, make sure you settle in correctly.
And how do you eliminate fear?
The only way to eliminate fear is to face your fear. They'll tell you the bravest soldiers that go to the front line, it's not like they don't have fear. I mean, they've got their fears, but it has to be done. The job has to be done, and you must be ready for all sorts of things. Rejection. You must be able to. You must be ready for points where you are actually questioning yourself. I mean, I remember days when I would, you've just had a long day, and you get home, and you retreat to that quietness, and then you're asking yourself, what a day. Is this something I want to do tomorrow? And then you wake up and you do it again. Yeah. So face your fears, uh, find strong people to work with, and yeah, you'll be fine.
Okay. No, on that note, we have come to the end of the interview. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
I've enjoyed being here, Henry. It's good to just have these discussions and talk about our great country. I'm one of those people who are very optimistic about where we're going. I deal a lot with a lot of our young engineers, and I see just how much drive they have.
Yeah, how's it going with Gen Zs in this field?
Oh, I mean, you have to love them. I love the courage. I love that in most cases nothing is personal. You can have a very difficult discussion, and you're literally just looking at the topic. It's not an attack on you personally. When we leave this room, we're going to have lunch as a team, and life goes on. I hear a lot of things about, oh, Gen Z that. I see them as a very, very positive force, and I think like with anyone, with the correct mentoring, I think they're going to change the landscape of Zambia.
No, I totally agree 100%. I think there's a very, very good drive. The good ones, of course, there are a few problematic ones, but the good ones, I think they're very good. They're different, they're constructively different set of grouping. And, the other generations, the older ones, would sort of have to adapt. It's either you go to war and you're going to lose. They're smarter. They started schooling when they were 9 months old and whatnot. They're a lot smarter. They grasp things a whole lot harder, and they're harder working. They're hardworking, and so it's a battle you can't win. To be honest, it's better to just sit and say, how do we, let's understand each other.
And I think they're also I find them to be very inquisitive, which leads them to open up new ways of doing things, where even you as a supervisor, you could have said, okay, guys, look, we need to get this done, and this is how I would like it to be done. And, tomorrow morning you've got one of the younger engineers popping into your office and saying, "Oh, look, I think we're achieving the same result if we do it this way. And yeah, we have to be open and listen and see, okay, are we achieving the same result? You know, are there any things that could be shaky about this? And you know, they're helping us build. So I think they should be given a pat on the back and not really put aside for their forwardness. I find them to also be very forward. But that's not a negative thing. It's a very, very positive thing.
It's positive as well. I think I've enjoyed, working with. I think I've enjoyed working with them.
Yeah.
Different thought process, different style of work, but very effective.
Yeah.
Very, very effective. Lots of mentoring required, but it's a different generation going to superior places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, great. It's been so. Otherwise, I've had a guest being here with you and talking about the consultancy space.
Yeah, same here. Now, audience, so thank you so much. Remember to like, comment, and share as well. So until next time, it's bye.